Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Today's webinar will be about animating creatures in Clip Studio Paint and is presented by Molly Heady-Carroll. Before we begin the webinar, there are some housekeeping items that we'd like to go through. The webinar will be approximately 1 hour long. All attendees will be muted. There will be a Q&A session during the last 50 minutes of the webinar. Attendees can ask questions using the GoToWebinar question box right away. As a reminder, the chat is only for us to send information to you. So if you want to say something, interact with us, please use the question panel. Due to time constraint, not all the questions will be answered, and this webinar will be recorded. The recording will be shared on social media and will be sent via email to all registrants and attendees. The panelists for this webinar are Mario Quiñones, myself, and Molly Heady-Carroll. For those of you who connect with us for the very first time or have never heard about Clip Studio Paint, Clip Studio Paint is your all-in-one solution for stunning, ready-to-publish illustrations, comics, manga, and animations. Learn more at clipstudio.net/n and graphicsly.com. Also, we encourage you to share your Instagram stories using the tag #webinar at Molly Heady-Carroll, at Graphicsly, at Wacom, and at Clip Studio Official. We'll be sharing your stories if you tag us. Irish-born Molly Heady-Carroll is a 2D artist and animator based in the Netherlands who specializes in all things creatures. Always obsessed with studying animals, especially reptiles, she now makes up her own as a creature consultant in the games and animation industry. In 2013, Molly co-founded Arcane Circus, the game studio behind Crab and Broke, and the kaiju-based pan-media IP Zennybeast, who recently released animated short Kaiju Cutie, which just blew up on YouTube. Molly freelances for clients such as Netflix, Universal Pictures, Night School Studios, BBC, Impact Gameworks, Crack Show Games, and Aniki Studios. She also gives lectures about creature design and conferences at schools all over the world. So with that, I will leave you with Molly and her amazing presentation, Animating Creatures in Clip Studio Paint. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mario. Hello, everybody. I'm Molly. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to tell you all about the wonderful world of animating creatures. If you have any questions, there'll be a Q&A at the end. I can't read the chat, unfortunately, but if you have any questions or comments for me, you can put them in the questions tab, and my lovely assistant Mario will get them to me hopefully by the end of this presentation. So, like I said, my name is Molly Heady-Carroll. And in a former life, I actually wanted to study reptiles and be a herpetologist, but eventually I pivoted away from that and I became an artist for the games and animation industry. These are just some of the clients that I've worked with. I studied at the Utrecht University of the Arts in the Netherlands, where I live, and I graduated in 2014 with a master's degree in game art. I was also mentored by Charles Imbillas. He is a wonderful artist. If you're not aware of him, you're definitely aware of his work. He is the original designer of Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon. I give lectures about creatures like the one you're listening to right now at conferences all over the world and also at universities. And I'm also the co-founder of Arcane Circus, which is an independent studio in the Netherlands that I co-founded with my dearly departed partner, Erik van Wees. The big project at Arcane Circus is Zennybeasts, which is a kind of multimedia project about giant indestructible kaiju that are destroying a 90s Saturday morning cartoon city. And there is some Zennybeast stuff out in the world already. For example, there's a series of comics that are on Webtoons that you can check out on zennybeast.com. And there is also my big beautiful cartoon as Zennybeast Kaiju Cutie, which I released earlier this year and has done very well. Episode 2 is in the works. Kaiju Cutie was, by the way, made in Clip Studio, and the sequel is also going to be made in Clip Studio. In fact, this isn't my first webinar. The first one I gave was about the making of Kaiju Cutie in Clip Studio, which is on Graphicsly's YouTube channel. Highly recommend checking that out after this one. That was a really fun one to do. There's the thumbnail. So just a quick disclaimer, this presentation assumes you already know how to animate in Clip Studio. On Graphicsly's YouTube channel, there's lots of videos that talk about the basics of animation and everything like that, but this is slightly more advanced. This assumes you can animate and you can work in Clip Studio. Though if you have any questions about my workflow, or maybe I do something a little bit too quickly or something like that, you're more than welcome to put it in the questions, and maybe it can maybe I can explain more clearly what I was doing in that case. All right, so that's about me. First thing I want to show you is my lovely assistant Tutttutt. This is Tutttutt. He's a cute little creature that I designed for the purposes of demonstrating animation. He's a tutorial monster. That's why he's called Tutttutt. And I based him on kind of like cats and lizards and things like that, because I wanted him to be able to be very expressive. He's got big expressive eyes, big expressive ears, big expressive mouth. I own a cat and leopard gecko, so I love cats and lizards, so this is why I created Tutttutt. So I've also animated Tutttutt, and there's a little animation of him expressing himself that I'd like to show. So if Mario would please play video 1 now. Thank you, Mario. So this is a very simple animation of Tutttutt looking off camera, hearing something to the right, and turning his head and having a look. And it's a serviceable animation. It works. So you've got him looking, then the head turn, the eyes are pointing in the direction first. They're leading the animation. There's a bit of follow through with ears. And then his head sort of goes a little bit too forward and his ears are pulled back to really emphasize those floppy ears. Then the ears stop, go back, and come forward again. And it's a serviceable animation, but it is very basic. It's just a simple head turn. And there's ways that you can make your creature animation much, much deeper. And that is to understand what the animal is thinking, how the animal behaves. For example, Tutttutt is based on lizards and cats, among other things. So are there things that real animals do that you can inject into this? Because then it feels more believable. There's more of a kind of psychology behind the animal. It's not just turning its head, it's actually thinking. And it can be quite difficult to know what an animal is thinking, because you're not that particular animal yourself. So how on earth do you understand what an animal is thinking? It's very simple. You observe real animals and the way that they behave and the way they express themselves. And by observing real animals, you can figure out interesting ways of allowing your imaginary animals to express themselves. So in this presentation, we're going to plus this animation and make it better. Maybe a little bit vague right now, but you'll see what I'm going for as we move on. So the next thing I want to show is another video, which is some real world footage of a caracal. So Mario, if you could play video 2 now, please. All right, so I've got this video up here in QuickTime, and we're going to go through it frame by frame. I chose this video because caracals have very big ears, and they're very expressive with them, and it's a good demonstration of the way that cats express themselves through their ears. A lot of people who own cats may have observed that they communicate a lot through their ears. So this caracal, it's like Tutttutt, is hearing something off camera and looking away, and then looking. His ears are kind of turning a little bit to listen out for other things going on. And at one point here, I think, the head goes up. He takes a big sniff at whatever it is that he's seen on the other side. You can see his whiskers moving slightly as he's sniffing. And then he turns his head back again to look back. Wasn't that interesting after all, this caracal was looking at? The reason I'm showing this video specifically is because of something that it does. You have to go frame by frame to see this because it's very quick. We're going to go frame by frame. See that ear? This ear here? I'm going to take it back again. Look, the ear is moving before the head or the eyes. Only now the head is turning after that ear has gone around and is listening to whatever is over there. Cats lead with the ears. Then the head. So let's take this observation and add it to Tutttutt. So this is the same animation as before, but with a few additions. So now, instead of just turning immediately, his ears prick up and his head pricks up. He goes from his ears being low to his ears being up. Then the eyes turn first the ears, then the eyes, then the head. With a lot of animals, especially cats, a lot of animals with big ears do this. Then the head turns. And now, instead of the ears just flopping back into place, they're pricked up and pointing in the direction like a radar dish at whatever that thing is that Tutttutt is looking at off camera. So I'll go through it one more time. Ears prick up. You can see I exaggerated, I overshoot it a little bit here where the ears pop up and then they come down again. Boop. I also make the mouth go a little bit smaller as well. Then the eyes move, then the head turn. This is all the same as before. And then this is almost the same except that the ears are pricked up. All right, so let's play this one in real time. Mario, if you could play video 3, please. Thank you. And to make it a little bit easier, I've also got a comparison of the two next to each other. So Mario, could you also play video 4 now, please? So that's feeling a little bit more alive now, wouldn't you say? Let's go through it frame by frame. So this little bit of acting and the ears pricking up is added, the eyes move, it turns, same, 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 same. And then ending with the ears pricked up. All right, so see, it's a little bit of observation of real animals and applying that to your imaginary animals can really add a lot to something like a head turn or any other kind of acting for a creature. It's quite a lot like if you're animating a human, you know, like they'd say to draw the thought and to not just have a person moving around and going through the motions, but that you can kind of understand what they're thinking. And it's the same with animals and it's the same with creatures, except there's kind of 2 or 3 other steps that you need to take where you need to understand you're drawing an animal that doesn't exist, and then you have to make it act. And a good place to look is in nature at animals that are maybe the inspiration for the creature that you are drawing, or are maybe kind of similar to the creature that you are drawing. So this is already much better, but let's take it even further now. There's one more video for us to look at. Mario, could you play video number 5, please, of a cat in a sink? Thank you. So again, there's a lot going on there, but I want to focus on one particular thing, which are the pupils of the cat. This is what happens when you do it live. Things can go a little funny, and I've opened it twice. That's what I get for being impatient. Okay, here we go. So cat is in the sink. He looks over. Person filming. They seem to have something quite interesting, as you see at one point. He sees the thing and he realizes what it is. Even his butt wiggles a little bit there. And here comes the money shot. Here it is. See the pupils? The pupils are getting bigger. Back a little bit so you can see it again. Pupils are getting bigger. The reason why animals with slit pupils do this is so that they can let in more visual information. So they do it when there's something that maybe they don't know what it is, or something that they really want to keep a close eye on. Animals will do this, and this cat does it very, very visibly. And then it's ready to pounce. I wonder what the person has that makes this cat so excited. Okay, well, let's take that and see what it looks like when we add it to Tutttutt. So this is the same as the previous one with the build-up with the ears. So we've got the horn, head turning, and now this time, instead of just staying still, we dilate the pupils a little bit. So they get a little bit bigger. It's very, very, so if you're only going to do one thing to plus your animation, this is a good one because it's very, very easy. All you're doing is thickening that line. 1, 2, 3-ish. I make it slightly bigger, slightly, much bigger, much bigger. Whoop, that kind of effect. So this is a very simple one. So Mario, if you could play video number 6, please, so we can see it in action. There we go, great. So side by side once again, this is a very simple one. We can skip a part of it at the beginning. The head turns. And the pupils dilate. Very, very simple one, but also adds a lot. And it's very important, by the way, to not only observe the videos of animals, that's a really good starting point, but always wonder why it's doing something. It would be one thing to observe that a cat's pupils dilate when they're in certain circumstances, but understanding animal behavior and even doing a little bit of research into animal behavior can go a very long way in your animation. It's not just observation, but it's also understanding the why, because then you can put that why into your own animation when you are animating your own creatures. So it's getting even better now. Let's take it even further with one more video of a cat. Mario, could you play video number 8, please? Thank you. There's quite a lot going on in that video. With the audio on, the cat is reacting to the sounds of kittens, and he looks very upset about it. So here's the video again. So here, a big thing that we're looking at is the head and the ears after they've seen something. We've done a lot of stuff at the beginning of the animation, trying to figure out if there's a way to plus it. So the cat is asleep, and we see what we saw before: ears, eyes, pupils dilating. We know this stuff already. You're all experts now. I don't need to explain that to you. He's looking around, but pay very close attention to his head and his ears after he gets up. See the ears? The radar dishing around. And then when he goes up, it goes quite fast because it cuts quite early, but ears are radar dishing around, head is moving around, but the eyes are locked on the kittens. So take it back again. So the movement of the head is also because of the dilating pupils to bring in more visual information and also to quickly check elsewhere what's going on with micro pupil movements. But also the ears are radar dishing around. Cats' ears are very, very sensitive, and they're one of their strongest senses. So when they've already seen the thing, they're often, especially if it's something, actually when it's something they think is dangerous, which is quite amusing in this case because he's listening to a kitten meowing and he wants something. But they often do that to check if there's anything else dangerous while they're distracted by this thing, just to check if there's something else going on. We saw it with the caracal as well, where the caracal looks over at the thing and is sniffing, but the ears are still kind of checking over here where the person on the camera who's filming is. So they turn to look at something, but they're keeping a bit of an eye on that owner as well. Maybe they don't like their owner very much. I don't know. Maybe they have a delicious treat for them and they're hoping that they'll get it from their owner. Could be anything, who knows. But the main thing with this video is the movements of the head and the movements of the ears. This is a very lively cat, very animated. and very expressive. And we want Tutttutt to be very expressive as well. So why don't we take this as inspiration and plus our animation a little bit more, shall we? So the beginning is the same. Oh, looks, head turn. Now we're going to add radar dishing ear, head tilt, radar dishing ear, and another head tilt. So there's little micro movements of the head and little tiny movements of the ears. It can be quite difficult doing very subtle animation like this. So one thing that I learned that works very well. So with the ear, I just have it move equally. I don't push, I don't follow it through because otherwise it's a little bit too rough. These are very light and also they have a lot of muscles, so they're very, they're able to move their ears with a lot of precision. And when you frame by frame through animations, it moves fairly like similarly. Things like the head tilt, just coming up here. So I want it to feel abrupt and stiff. And the way that I do that is I tilt it, smooth it a little bit, and then I trace the same frame again. And tracing the same frame again is a really good way to get subtle movement without overdoing it because it implies micro movement. You just trace the same frame again because you're never going to trace it perfectly again, even if you zoom in real close and you go very carefully. But just that little boil adds a lot. Also, I think the pupil. No, not even. I was going to say maybe the pupil is continuing to dilate, but not even that. So, and again, it's a slightly bigger movement there. Same exact thing. See, it looks like micro movement. You just see that. You can also do it with things like very subtle expressions. If you want something to sort of like go oh, really slowly, that can also help just redrawing it to imply movement. Another thing that can help a lot with subtlety is just making the line get a little bit thicker as well. These are things you can experiment with. I'm also being very careful that I don't overload with too much information. So I've got the head tilt and then the ear move. And I leave quite a few frames in between the ear moving and the head tilting, and then the ear tilting and the head moving, because you want to give the viewer enough time to be able to understand what is going on. It's really important. Very often with your animation, if it's not working, just padding it out a little bit more so that there's not too many things happening at once that the audience has to take in is all that you need to do to make it work. And it can feel really long when you're in the timeline and you're dealing with a 30th of a second at a time, but often you can pad things out a lot more than you would think. I very often have that when I finish an animation, pad it out. So why don't we check out this animation in action next, which is video number 9, please. Now we're getting somewhere. So we've got the compare the side by side here. So, and there was a lot of dead space where nothing was happening at the end of that animation initially. And now we've got this nice little movements to show. He goes from this, having a head just turning, if it's sort of nonchalant, like the caracal turned its head and it just kind of went, okay, whatever, keeping an eye on its owner and then turning his head back again very gently. But the cat that we saw is very distressed by what it's hearing because its babies are asking for something. So that's a lot more, oh God, I have to do something. And he just woke up as well. So that adds a lot of character to what that cat is going through versus the caracal. It's just kind of, okay. And it's for the purposes of this demo, it's nicer to have Tutttutt a little bit more, you know, sort of cute, dopey, sort of excited sidekick character. All right, so coming along very, very nice here. Let's show the comparison next, which is video number 10. In the case with this animation, the other one could also function depending on what we want Tutttutt to be doing. If he's looking at prey, for example, he may be a lot more focused on it and that have all of his attention rather than checking elsewhere. If he's in a very safe environment, maybe he's in a very dangerous environment and he spots food, and then it's important to look around. So all of these things are informing the mentality of the creature, and it's all based on reality. So this woman, well, let's take it even further next. I want to take it even further, and I also want to look at another influence, because we've looked at a lot of felines. I want to look at another influence for Tutttutt. I want to look at reptiles, because he is a kind of lizard cat thing. And he's feeling a little bit too mammalian, he's feeling too feline. I want him to feel a bit more like a lizard, because I love lizards, clearly. So let's look at another video, which is video number 11 of a leopard gecko. So the reason I showed this one is because of something that the gecko does at the end of the video. It doesn't have ears, so it's quite funny to look at after having looked at so many cats. Something else I notice about lizards is that they squint their eyes as they turn them. I know this because I've had leopard geckos for over 20 years, so I've watched them a lot. They squint and then turn, and they don't do a lot of micro movements. They tend to move their head with quite a lot of follow through and very suddenly. But that's not what we're focused on for Tutttutt. I wanted to limit it to one thing per video. Just looking at the thing. I feel like he's probably got something tasty on the other side, and the reason that I think that is because of right at the end, that tongue flick. This is things that lizards do, with the tongue flicking. Some lizards do it more than others. I also looked at monitor lizards' videos, but monitor lizards do it all the time, so it's kind of hard to tell when it's when it's doing it. Leopard geckos do it, especially when they're in a new environment, and also if there's food. The reason why lizards flick their tongue is because they have something in the roof of their mouth, which is called a Jacobson's organ. And the Jacobson's organ identifies and interprets taste molecules in the air. So the tongue comes out, the taste molecules and smell molecules stick to the tongue goes in and it hits the roof of their mouth, and they're able to interpret things. So they're seeing through smell, or they're seeing through taste in a way. It's one of the ways that reptiles experience the world, especially something that's delicious or maybe not known very much like the ears going around. So see, this is also another reason why I wanted to show this, is because different types of animals express themselves in different ways, and it's limited to their biology. It's the same with humans. We respond to certain ways and react to things in certain ways because of our biology versus the way that a cat might express themselves, or a leopard gecko, or a shark, or a tarantula, or what have you. And all animals do express themselves. If you spend enough time observing them and questioning this and researching this, you can very quickly understand why an animal does what it does and what it's thinking, and you can inject that into your creature animation for your imaginary animals. So this is another relatively simple one for Tutttutt. Head turn, dilating pupils, ears radar dishing, head tilting. And right at the end here, I'm gonna add a tongue flick. And specifically a leopard gecko style tongue flick, because some lizards have forked tongues, and some of them have sort of flat tongues and things like that. Leopard geckos have a kind of weird mix where it's a flat tongue with a fork on the end. And anybody who owns a reptile will know that there's like very, very specific ways that they do it, that they express themselves. But leopard geckos, typically, tongue comes out first. They open their mouth a little bit, and you can see their cute little sharp teeth, which I added to Tutttutt because I think it's really cute that leopard geckos have these little tiny sharp teeth. And then the mouth basically closes and they blep, with the tongue sticking out, and you can see the little fork. It's also a way for the audience to be able to acknowledge that he has a forked tongue. You want to show that fork as long as possible, and then he goes back in. The mouth is technically closed, like I don't even move the mouth anymore, so that the focus is on that little cute little blep that he does at the end there. Tongue out, blep, closed. So it's like a insulting one, then a wide mouth open one, then a blep, and then the mouth closed. let's check this one out in all its glorious beauty. Mario, would you play video number 12 now, please? And there you go. So we've come quite a far way from the beginning. Let's check out what we had at the beginning and what we have now so you can compare it. Would you play video number 13, please? Lucky number 13. And there we go. So we took an animation that already looked pretty good, I think, and plussed it even more and made it more of an animal acting rather than just going through the motions. So this is as far as I'm going to take this now, but I have a challenge for you. I've made my observations about how to add expression to Tutttutt. Maybe when you were watching these videos and observing them together with everybody, maybe you spotted things that I didn't about the animals behaving, or maybe your cat or your leopard gecko does something really weird that I didn't mention. So I would love to see other people's takes on how to plus this animation of Tutttutt. And you can do that by, if you add me on Instagram and you PM me, I'll send you that first initial Clip Studio file of the head turn. And I'm sure Graphicsly would also love to see what you do as well. So please contact me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram, politely request the Clip Studio file. I will send it to you. And then whatever you do with Tutttutt, I would love to see it, and Graphicsly would love to see it as well. If you tag me at Molly Heady-Carroll on Instagram, and also Graphicsly when you post it, we'd be delighted to see it, and we'd be delighted to share it as well. So I'm very, very much looking forward to see what all of you do. So that's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for all listening. I really hope that this has helped you a lot, and I hope to see some really cool creature animations coming out of this. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you so much, Molly, for this amazing presentation. Everybody loved it. It was super fun. At the beginning, we asked from which part of the world were you watching us. So we want to say thanks to Alexandra from Poland, Aleta from South Africa, Violeta, Venezuela, Farah, Pakistan, Lumina, Germany, Arizona James, via Germany, Turkey, Matilda, California Jace, Spain, Mick, Argentina, Sebastian, Quebec, Francis, etc. So thank all of you who joined us live today.
Thank you for coming, everybody. That's really cool. Wow.
It's really, really cool. And one of the questions that I wanted to start with, let me check. What event? This is from Jonathan Vergara. Really nice question. What event in your life made you realize creature animation consulting is your calling versus other career paths?
Oh, that's an interesting one. The weird thing is that I think I always was this. I just needed to find a word for it or a term for it, because I've always been interested in creatures, real and imagined. Always. My earliest drawings are creatures and monsters. The movies I'd watch would have monsters. I'd look at animals. I was obsessed with animals. I wanted to study them before I worked in the industry. I'm the kind of person that if I'm walking around and there's a bird, I'll follow the bird and see what it's up to, or there's a bug on the wall and see what the bug's up to and stuff like that. So it's just kind of the lens that I look at the world through is creatures. And I don't know, I guess I also really like helping other people with their projects, and I like developing creatures for projects. So being able to do that for other people's projects is really, really satisfying for me, and it's what I'm good at as well.
And we appreciate you for that. So another question from Amelia. What if it's a fantastic creature like a dragon? If you make creatures combined with two mystical creatures, a dragon and a nightingale fox spirit, what animal you should study to make it more realistic?
Oh, well, it depends on what, so what animals are you basing that creature on? If you're not basing it on anything in particular, that's totally okay. That's absolutely fine. Sometimes I design creatures and they're not based on animals. They're based on ideas, or they're based on. I remember when one of the creatures I remember designing when I was a child was, I thought hair clips looked really cool, so I made a mouth, a creature that looked like a hair clip, for example. But your creatures are always based on something. There's always something. It can be other animals. It can be an emotion. It can be something that exists in the world. But figuring out what is a close parallel in reality to what it is that I am animating, and what is giving the intended experience that I'm trying to convey in watching my creature. So, for example, if you're designing a dragon, is it a frightening dragon? Is it a cute dragon? Is it somebody's pet? Is it a kind of aloof dragon? So if it's a pet dragon, very often people default to dogs because audiences understand dog behavior. So wagging tail, tongue panting, head down, playful, shifting from shoulder to shoulder. If it's more aloof, you might base it on a cat where it's sitting up high and it's kind of looking down, and maybe the ears are moving like a cat and things like that. Or if it's more frightening, what's an animal that's really frightening in real life? A snake, a tiger, could be someone really angry stomping at you. These are all things you can look at and mix and match into your creature design. A really famous example of using real animals for creature animation purposes to add believability, for example, was on How to Train Your Dragon. When Toothless wakes up, and spoiler alert, and his tail is different, shall we say. It's not the tail that he's used to. He wakes up and he's panicking and looking at the tail and sort of like trying to shake it away. And the reference for that was taping a ball of tape to the end of a cat's tail. And they filmed the cat sort of, what is this thing? Why is this on my tail? And they used that. And there, it's because Toothless is, among other things, based on cats, and also because they wanted to capture this animalistic reacting to something of their body being different than they're used to. So you can do this too by observing and applying it to your own creatures.
So Destiny Philistine asked, what animated film or series inspired you?
Oh, many of them did. My favorite movie ever is Yellow Submarine from the 60s, the Beatles animated movie. And I always thought the creatures in that were really cool. So that's a big influence on me, strangely. Very surreal, crazy designs. I love that stuff a lot. Other creature media, like films and TV shows and stuff like that. I love Godzilla a lot, and kaiju media in general. I think my favorite kaiju movie is probably Gorgo. But I also love Hedorah from Godzilla, the smog monster. And I'm also a really big fan of Pokemon. I think Pokemon is really, really just the best creature design in the whole world. And I don't think it's a coincidence that their creature designs are so good and connect with people so much. They utilize making really appealing creatures that appeal to very specific people, and they're also the most successful media franchise of all time. I think creatures really prove that creatures are able to have a real influence on an audience, which is something that I talk about a lot when I'm doing creature consultancy. I also love xenomorphs. I think xenomorphs are really cool. I don't know if you can see. Oh, it's on the other shelf. Darn it. Let's see. I've got a red xenomorph queen up there. And also a lot of Godzilla stuff as well in my studio. So those are particular designs that I really enjoy from film and TV.
Thank you for sharing that. And a lot of questions, a popular question actually is, what's your hardware setup like?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Let's see if we can get a little bit meta here. So I have a standing desk. And let's see, I don't know how long this wire is, and I don't know how visible this is, but you can see I have a Cintiq here. It's a very old one. I've had it for, I think, over 10 years now. And I've got a screen up there, which is currently projecting what you guys are seeing. I have a ring light for when I'm presenting. And I have a standing desk, and over there is where my leopard geckos live. So they're not out right now, but I have them next to me when I'm working. They're my muse. So I got a quite serious wrist injury when I was in college, and I couldn't draw for 2 years. So I take my physical health very seriously. And one of the things that I do in order to stay healthy is utilizing a standing desk. I do have a stool for if I'm really tired or maybe I'm not feeling well and stuff like that, but that's my setup. And I have my studio here in Amsterdam as well.
Awesome. And another question is from Stella Solomon. What's the hardest thing for you to animate in your animation career? What was the hardest thing? Sorry.
The hardest thing, I think the hardest thing I've ever animated took a long time, and I was very, very proud of it at the end. I worked on Hammerwatch Anniversary Edition, and I redesigned the bosses for that game and animated those, which was already very difficult because their monsters are very large for pixel art, and they walk in 8 directions. So I had to do all the animations in 8 directions. They all had to line up correctly, and they all had to be quite large. The bigger a pixel art sprite is, the more detail, the more time it takes. And there's a final boss, an ice dragon, who is enormous. It's the biggest sprite I've ever made for a pixel art game. And I had to animate the head with the mouth opening and the head turning completely every direction for when it's breathing fire. And that took ages. It took forever because I was animating all this detail as well. It's on my website, and it's also in the game if you want to check it out. But there was all this detail that had to be done frame by frame, and it all had to be perfect, and it all had to line up correctly so that it seamlessly moved around. And when I showed it to people, like very high-level animators, they would tell me, "You did this with a 3D model underneath, right?" No, I eyeballed it. I did everything by hand. So that was a really, really difficult one. But nowadays I can do stuff like that. Not too bad. That's the funny thing, is that if you do something very difficult, then everything kind of around that gets a little bit easier because you've done it once before. So the most difficult thing to animate always kind of changes depending on the level that you're at.
Here's another question from Heidi Platten. What resources do you recommend for beginners?
Well, definitely observing from life is a big one. That's not just for beginners, that's for everybody. And that's something that you should be doing all throughout your career in animation. I also recommend Clip Studio. It's a very good program for animating in. And as for resources, I actually posted about this earlier today. I posted the animation books that I always pull to when I'm working. I've got a huge library here of books, and I have them here actually from when I photographed them earlier. You can check them out on Graphicsly's Instagram page. But I posted 4 books that I just always default to. Doesn't matter what the project is. I have a lot of other books for if I'm doing things that are kind of more specific. But these are all mandatory in my opinion. The first one is the Animation Survival Kit by Richard Williams. I think most animators will say this is one to get, and they're right. It breaks down a lot of it talks about his career and things, which is all very interesting and very legendary, and the basics of animation. But something that I find very useful about it is that it breaks down a lot of basics and frame by frame what to do. In fact, the head turn for Tutttutt was based on a head turn in this book. So I looked at the way Richard Williams handled a head turn and applied that to Tutttutt. Oh, I wish I had it. Bookmarked, but I don't, sadly. But it is in there. It's a bulldog turning its head. The next book that I highly recommend. It doesn't have to be this format, but Preston Blair's animation book. This is the book that where I first learned about animation, actually. And this is especially good for things like how to make animation appealing, how to make character designs appealing, and goes over some really great basics like extremes and clarity and things like that. And it's a real, I've been looking at this book since I could hold a pencil. And I still go back to it because everything in it is really fundamental. This page in particular I really enjoy, where it talks about how to make characters look cute, but it also breaks down some animation as well. Things like this. And this is I don't think this is an original, but this is how it originally was released. It was as a big format book like this, but you can get it, it's public domain, so it's available online for free. And also sometimes you get it in bargain shops. This is a Dutch copy that I had before I got this, this big format one. Very, very good stuff. Something that is not easy to get, and I had to work very hard to get, is this book, which is Miyazaki's storyboards. There's a series of these, and it's his storyboards from start to finish with his films. And it's just an absolute masterclass in storyboarding. This is the one for Spirited Away. This is not an easy book to get. I got it in Japan and I had to look very hard to find it, especially if you want a specific film. I actually want Lupin's film book, which does exist, but I couldn't find it even in Tokyo, unfortunately. And I look at this whenever I'm storyboarding, partially because Miyazaki is such a great storyboarder and looking at the way that he handles shots and everything, but also things like not only what he does, but also what he chooses not to do. That's something that actually hit me more. So sometimes he'll not draw the background. Sometimes he'll just kind of gesture the drawing because it's already been established in the previous drawing. Like, this drawing's much looser than this drawing. And to me, if Miyazaki doesn't do it, if he doesn't draw it in his storyboard, nobody has to. So you don't have to either. And I find a lot of I find a lot of joy in that, because I tend to really overwork my storyboards. It's kind of hard to know when you're putting too much detail in. And the last one, which is not necessarily a book like this, I just happen to have a book of it because I much prefer opening up loads of books next to my workspace over looking things up on the internet, is Edward Muybridge's photography. He took photographs of animals and people in motion. And then later on, when film was developed and animation was developed, a lot of animators were looking at his breakdowns, and this is essential, and it's really, really useful. And it's nice to have this just all here. So if I need somebody jumping or a deer running or something, I can just quickly open it up, and there it is, everything there that I need to draw a naked old man, for example. That was not a good page to open on, but there we go. That's a bit more, that's a bit better, like a dog or whatever. So those are my high recommendations. Definitely Muybridge, definitely Preston Blair, definitely Richard Williams, and Miyazaki if you can find it, but it is very, very difficult to find. But if you ever see one, grab it. That's what I would recommend.
Well, thank you so much, Molly. Another question is, what's the most useful tool you find for animation on Clip Studio Paint?
Oh, that's a good question. The most useful tool. I'm trying to think. Is there something I really like? There's a plugin for coloring. This one that's like, it's not a poop, it's an ice cream. The creator explicitly says this on their page. This is a free plugin for coloring. Let me see if I can demonstrate how it works. I don't think I can because I haven't set up the file correctly. But if you have like a drawing like this, a beautiful, beautiful drawing like this one, then brilliant, it works. So I have a layer here with the face, and I have an empty layer here. I don't know what the plugin is called, but if you put in coloring plugin Clip Studio and you click on the not poop ice cream, then you'll get it pretty quick. It's pretty highly rated. And then I can just select the outline, and boom, I have my flats underneath. And that saves me so much time compared to when I was animating in other programs. I really, really love that a whole lot. That's my favorite for sure.
Talking about difficult stuff, this one is from Aleta van der Meer. Sorry if I mispronounce your last name. What is the most challenging aspect of animation for you? I find coloring and rendering to be quite complex and time-consuming.
Yeah, well, that plugin helps a lot with coloring, but shading is my least favorite. It's like coloring's my favorite, shading is my least favorite. It takes so long, it's so tedious. You have to take, it can take as long as animating the dang shot, for example, but it does add so much fidelity to the animation. When I was animating Kaiju Cutie, for example, I was, oh man, I really don't want to have to shade all of this. So I animated a sequence without the shading and one with, and I was like, let's put them next to each other and see if there's a difference. And the shading, it was 10 times better at least. So it's like, it's really annoying, but it adds so much to the animation, and ultimately that's that's what you want. So yeah, I hate shading, and I don't have any shortcuts for it. That's why I hate it, but it's necessary because it adds so much to the animation.
Okay, and another question is, do you need to be a traditional animator first to then move into digital animation?
Oh, so I certainly hope you don't think that you're supposed to work on paper and a pegboard before you can work in Clip Studio, because that's absolutely not the case. But I imagine what you're saying is frame by frame animation versus, say, like rigged animation or something like that. I don't think you have to do anything. Just do what you like. I mean, there's people who, I know people who start out doing 3D animation and they work their way up to traditional animation. They see it as superior in some ways. Well, then I see other people who work traditional and then build up to 3D. I mean, all of it is it's all of this practice is contributing to the same end result, which is bringing motion to things that don't exist. So I think more important is to be constantly trying to get better and expressing yourself the way that you want to express yourself and building up to higher fidelity and improving and everything like that. But the way that you go about that, make it nice for yourself, for goodness sake. I would, if you're really interested in traditional animation, do that. If you're really interested in rigging animation, do that. If you really love 3D, do that. Stop motion, do that. Whatever it is, it's your path and you should do it your way.
So I think with those wise words, we can close this webinar. Thank you so much, Molly, for this amazing presentation. Let me read some nice comments from people, because a lot of people send pretty nice comments. Let me check here from Mexico. Edgar, thank you very much for the presentation and greetings. Aleda says your explanations are super useful and informative. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm happy.
So thank all of you who joined us live. Thank all of you who are watching the recording. Again, as we said, this webinar has been recorded and will be shared on our YouTube channel, so please stay tuned. So before we go, I'm gonna share one last bit of information. For more information about Clip Studio Paint, remember to check our website, clipstudio.net/n and graphicsly.com. Please subscribe to our YouTube channels, Clip Studio Paint channel and Graphicsly, to receive a notification once the video is available, and also for future videos, tutorials, etc. And don't forget to follow Molly on her socials as Molly Heady-Carroll on Instagram, but also subscribe to Arcane Circus YouTube channel. You can visit her website, creatureconsult.com and sunnybeast.com. So with that, once again, thank you so much, Molly.
My pleasure. Thank you everyone for being here. And send me your Tuttutts. Ask me for the file and I'll send you the Clip Studio file.
For sure, for sure. And we'll be sharing your Tuttutts also in our social media. So thank you so much. Stay tuned. We hope to see you in our next event. Bye-bye.